Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, a bill is introduced in the U.S. House to not require GMO food labeling.
Mississippi 4-H'ers go to the Mississippi Legislature to learn from and thank its members for their support.
In Southern gardening, garden herbs. Many are scared to try them, but it's easier than you imagine.
In the markets, tighter supplies push soybean prices higher as slow pasture development threatens the expansion of the beef herd.
In the feature segment, peanuts in Mississippi. Peanuts have been a traditional crop for a long time, but now they're a commercial crop as well.
Cotton had just run its course and the price had gotten so low and the yield had gotten so weak because we didn't practice proper crop rotation that we wasn't making any money out of the crop at all. So we've discovered peanuts as an alternative.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
Many initiatives are on state ballots which would force food manufacturers to label whether items contain genetically engineered ingredients.
Well, Leighton, food makers currently don't have to label their products that contain GMOs. Wednesday, a bill was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives to make it federal law. Kansas Republican Mike Pompeo introduced the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act. If passed, the bill would make the Food and Drug Administration the authority on GMO labeling in the country. The FDA has indicated in the past it prefers a voluntary approach to GMO labeling. Now, the bill would invalidate efforts in 20 states to require mandatory labeling for foods containing GMOs. The bill is supported by many in the food and biotechnology industries. Now, Pompeo said that the scientific community has proven GMO foods are safe. He said requiring GMO labels would mislead consumers into thinking the food was unsafe. Naturally, there are many opposed to Pompeo's bill. Pompeo said that operating the nation's food system would be extremely difficult with a jumble of state laws governing GMO food labeling. Pompeo said we need a uniform set of standards. There's no similar bill introduced in the Senate, and it's expected Democrats there won't support the new bill. In fact, Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer of California has introduced one which would require mandatory GMO labeling. A companion bill to Boxer's legislation has been introduced in the House.
There were many alumni of the 4-H program among the state legislators who attended a recent luncheon held in their honor. Present 4-H members use this annual occasion to say thank you for the financial support lawmakers provide the state program every year. The young people also get an introduction to leadership during their visit to Jackson. Farm Week's Jonathan Parrish reports.
Green jackets were on display in the Mississippi State Capitol as 4-H members from across the state took part in the annual 4-H Legislative Day. State 4-H President Mary Kate Gaines was fascinated by the amount of people in leadership who were former 4-H'ers.
What I love about 4-H is there's really famous people who are part of 4-H. I mean, I did a speech, I figured out that Orville Redenbacher was a 4-H'er, and that was the whole reason his 4-H project was corn, and so he made popcorn when he grew up. And I mean, 4-H just gives you a head start on all of those job opportunities, so it's really a great thing.
One of those notable alumni of Mississippi 4-H is Stacy Pickering, the Mississippi State Auditor. He is this year's recipient of the 4-H Alumni of the Year Award. Mr. Pickering says 4-H was a big part of his life as a youth, and he loves seeing the program thrive today.
I was in 4-H Club from really age 9 till 18. I had the privilege of attending 4-H National Club Congress. Leadership in D.C. really exposed me not only to state government, but to national government. Public speaking, my dairy project helped put me through college, not only the cows that I earned, but as a national 4-H scholarship winner. So it's a great program to help kids at all levels, no matter what their background, their family situation, to achieve their full potential.
Pickering offered his members' record book to be placed in the 4-H museum after receiving the 4-H Alumni of the Year award. This year's 4-H Legislative Day had to be rescheduled from its original date due to winter weather, but that did not stop legislators from coming out and supporting the event. Extension Associate Director Paula Threadgill says that the support 4-H receives from the Capitol is vital to the success of the program.
Mississippi State University Extension Service 4-H Development Department receives funds from the state legislature to help us with our program statewide. If it wasn't for these legislators and their support, we could not provide all the programs for our youth across the state of Mississippi.
4-H also used the luncheon to recognize and reward 4-H clubs across the state for their hard work with various awards. TransCanada made a big announcement as well, a donation of $80,000 to the Mississippi 4-H program. From Jackson, Mississippi, I'm Jonathan Parrish reporting.
Some gardeners don't attempt growing herbs because they're afraid they're too delicate. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman shows us some easy-to-grow herbs that are beautiful as well as tasty.
With the increased interest, more homeowners than ever have home gardens. Herbs are a popular group of these garden plants and perhaps the most misunderstood. Herbs have been used for centuries for flavorings, and believe it or not, herbs just don't come out of those cute little jars. They are also valuable ornamental plants. They can add interest with a wide variety of foliage color, aroma, and textures. Right now, the garden centers have a broad variety of herbs ready to plant into your landscape. Now, I personally would grow herbs in containers so they can be placed near the house for easier harvest. I'd like to suggest some herbs that can make any new gardener look like a pro. Dill is a popular choice with its frilly fine textured foliage. This is a forgiving herb that is a popular choice for fish dishes, and the flower heads are used for homegrown dill pickles. Another fine textured feathery herb is bronze fennel. This herb adds a sophisticated flavoring to dishes. Thyme is a lower growing and trailing herb. English thyme is a common green variety. For color, try either lemon or variegated thyme. And woolly thyme has a fuzzy texture on the leaves. Sage is a coarse-leaved perennial herb. The common variety has grayish-green leaves. Icterina is variegated with dark green centers and light green edges, and tricolor has green, white, and pinkish foliage and looks really good in a container. Herbs can be used fresh or dried down to store for use on a cold day next winter. Herbs should be harvested in the morning when their aromatic essential oils are at their peak. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Leighton Gary says another good herb for beginners is basil. Perennials include chives and mint. In the feature segment today, Mississippi peanuts. Many growers are welcoming the opportunities this crop offers. Time now for the markets with Leighton, and you say there are some processing plant closings that are affecting the livestock sector in our area.
That's right. In fact, 2 plants in the area are going to be shuttered soon, and the announcement of their closure recently stuns the communities being impacted. Meanwhile, high hog prices may not be justified according to some analysts, while new USDA supply-demand numbers support soybean prices. Well, as one newspaper put it, it's a major blow. It was announced on April 4th that 2 meat processors in our region are closing. The plants are only about 100 miles apart. Southern Quality Meats in Pontotoc, Mississippi is closing in June. The sausage product manufacturer employs 110 people. It has been in business there since 1962. Meanwhile, just across the state line in northwest Alabama, Hillshaw Brands is closing its huge cooking facility in Florence, Alabama by the end of December. 1,100 workers are there. The product line included meats for breakfast sandwich products as well as sausage. China has stopped issuing permits for live U.S. pigs to enter that country. The importer says it's concerned about the porcine epidemic diarrhea virus that continues to spread across the United States. The USDA says China imported over 13,000 pigs for breeding purposes last year. Well, the government's recent Hogs and Pigs report indicated the losses from that previously mentioned PED virus may not be as large as expected, at least so far. Analyst Walt Hackney says the current high hog prices may be unjustified. In fact, he thinks prices are extraordinarily high, especially since hogs are running heavy and there's a glut of pork product coming down the pipeline.
They're feeding hogs cheaper today than they have for a long, long time. And you know what? They're making a hog today, average market weight, 9 pounds heavier than a year ago. That's fatal in the hog industry when you consider 415 to 425,000 head of hogs being marketed a day. 2 million plus a week. Take 9 pounds times 415,000 hogs a day. That is a bunch of pork chops.
Some livestock economists are warning that expansion of our nation's cattle herd could suffer a setback if the drought conditions in parts of the U.S. don't improve. In the feeder cattle side, analyst Alan Brugler says he is seeing some heifer retention taking place now. However, this move, he says, may be a little gamble.
We'd see more if the grass was better. I mean, you look at some of the pasture conditions in the South, which is the only place we've got anything growing yet. They're not that good. And so we're seeing some limited retention. The biggest question, if you're a cow-calf guy, is can I keep the feeder prices high enough, long enough to have something to sell? And so it's a bit of a gamble.
Let's look now at the trivia quiz for this week. Here's the question. How many active cotton gins are there in the United States right now? Is the answer 420 or 660? Could it be 749? Or is that answer 830? I'll tell you at the end of the markets.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the rest of the markets. Leighton Spann reports the latest supply-demand report was a surprise for corn, while cotton numbers were in line with expectations. In the feature segment today, growing goober peas in Mississippi. It's a crop with newfound respect and market opportunities.
From our family to yours, Mississippi's farmers believe the best produce and livestock are grown right here at home. With ms.foodsearcher.com, you're only a click away. Using your smartphone, you'll be connected to hundreds of families and small businesses dedicated to providing you with fresh, local foods. Produce, meats, fish, dairy, agritourism, community markets, and more are right at your fingertips, no matter where you are. ms.foodsearcher.com.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. Are my pine trees ready to thin? Is a forestry workshop for private timber landowners. See how to determine if it's time to thin your pines. It takes place Tuesday, April 22nd at the Alcorn County Extension Office on Levee Road in Corinth. The hours are 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. You'll get actual field experience to go with your classroom work. Please pre-register by Friday, April 18th. Lunch is included in the $21 registration fee. The North Mississippi Forage Field Day will be Friday, April 25th. The location is MSU's North Mississippi Branch Experiment Station on Highway 7 North at Holly Springs. Hours are 9 a.m. to noon. Once again, you're asked to pre-register to help with meal planning. Alfalfa, annual clovers, perennial clovers, orchard grass, tall fescue, and small grains such as oats and rye will be covered. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
This week, less than 2 weeks after that planting intentions report, the USDA released new supply-demand numbers for the month. Extension Ag economist Brian Williams shared some thoughts about the impact of these numbers on the corn and soybean markets. Brian, would you say the ending stocks number for corn was a surprise?
I think it was. We were expecting around 1.4 billion bushels before the report came out, and the report came out with ending stocks of about 1.33 billion bushels.
And another surprise was the export number for corn, right?
Right. They increased the exports by 125 million bushels, and that's the majority of the movement from last month to this month. And The big thing about that is that the exports are more than double right now that they were a year ago.
Now, the market price reaction was somewhat unusual, as we were discussing off camera a few minutes ago.
It was. Just looking at this report in itself, it seemed like it should be bullish, but prices actually came down a little bit yesterday. And the reason for that is that another report came out alongside this one that was unofficial and wasn't included in these numbers, that said that China was going to reduce their imports by about 1 million metric tons.
Now, is the market expected to stay about where it is now, or what would you expect as far as a price picture for corn?
I think right now it's kind of stabilizing. Long term, we need to watch kind of the planting and the progress there, but after the reports come out, it looks like things have kind of settled down a little bit.
Now, turning to soybeans, the carryout was lowered as well, right?
It was lowered by about 10 million bushels to 135 million bushels.
And the export picture for soybeans?
The exports are real positive with soybeans. They increased the exports by 50 million bushels, but we did increase imports by about 30 million bushels, so there's a net increase of 20 million bushels there.
And I understand we definitely had positive price reaction that may have stuck a little bit as far as soybeans.
It did. Prices went up with soybeans yesterday.
So from what it said about soybeans, the U.S. crop this season really has become even more important, that it's on time and large?
Yeah, it is. Looking at the ending stock numbers, they're actually lower this year than they were a year ago when they were considered to be extremely tight. But the positive thing is that we're expecting a lot more acres this year to hopefully get a big soybean crop.
And as for cotton, in that supply-demand report, DTN says the U.S. estimates were much in line with the expectations. The numbers feature lower production and ending stocks compared with last month. On the world side of cotton, the estimates include an increase in expected imports by China. Well, before our feature story, let's check the trivia answer now for the week. The correct choice is B, an estimated 660 active cotton gins in the United States.
In the feature segment today, peanuts. They're not a new crop to Mississippi, but interest in the crop has grown considerably through the past 5 years. Peanut companies are now buying in the state, creating market opportunities. Grower Don Self of Hamilton says his family operation has benefited by adding peanuts to the crop mix it produces. Farmweek's Amy Taylors first brought us this story last November.
As generating profit continues to challenge rural America, some farmers are finding new ways to achieve economic stability. Don Self, who owns and operates Self Farms with his family, says growing peanuts practically helped save the farm. They started growing peanuts in 2007 and now sell to a company who buys the peanuts and markets them to be used in peanut butter and candy bars. Self says one of the perks of growing this crop is the short commute required to deliver peanuts to the buyer.
Birdsong peanuts put in a buying point in Aberdeen, about 15 miles from here, out in what we call Prairie, Mississippi, a few years back, and it really did help all the farmers in North Mississippi. Instead of us having to take our peanuts 300 and something miles, we take them 15 now, and it allows us to pick late in the afternoon. We can take a truck before we had to stop to get a truckload. It has really helped us more than we could ever say.
Self grows the Georgia 06G variety, also known as the runner peanut. Peanuts grow best in sandy soil, and Self Farms plants them from seed between late April to mid-May and harvests in October. Self says he determines when it's harvest time by stopping every 100 yards and checking peanuts by scraping the shell. If the shell is white below the surface and the peanut inside is bronze colored, the crop is ready. Harvesting is a two-part process. Producers first use inverters to turn peanuts out of the ground. After drying for a few days, they're picked up with a combine. Don Self's father, Dennis, explains why the family decided to start planting peanuts.
Cotton had just run its course, and the price had gotten so low and the yield had gotten so weak because we didn't practice proper crop rotation that we wasn't making any money out of the crop at all. So we discovered peanuts as an alternative. And course, peanuts, like cotton or any other crop, you got to rotate them in order to get the maximum production out of them.
One of the most important reasons to rotate between crops in the field is to avoid plant disease settling in the soil and contaminating plants. Therefore, Self Farms usually divides the fields into thirds between peanuts, cotton, and corn, and rotates every 3 years. Mississippi State University Extension Service plant pathologist Dr. Alan Henn says currently the worst disease is known as southern stem rot.
Everybody loves a peanut because peanuts are so nutritious. They have lots of protein and they have lots of good flavor and taste. And so diseases are no exception to that. Diseases flock to peanuts. So working as a plant pathologist working on peanuts, I'm in seventh heaven because there's lots of diseases that go to peanuts. But probably the worst disease in our state right now is white mold, which causes a disease of peanuts called southern stem rot. And the reason it can be so bad is because of these little resting structures that you see in this Petri plate right here. You see these little round dots that kind of look like large BBs. And those can last for years in the soil. And they have over 644 different hosts, so even if you've got a couple weeds, there's probably a good host in there. They tend to replicate in, and you need long periods of rotations, at least 3 years between peanuts and a crop, a following crop of peanuts.
Furthermore, Dr. Henn says it's important not to add any crop to a rotation that's been known to host this disease.
We like to rotate to poorer hosts of this disease, and that is one of the reasons that soybean is not such a good rotation crop for peanuts, and that this disease of white mold will go to soybeans and reproduce very well on soybeans, not do a whole lot of damage to them, but then when you plant peanuts after that, you have a lot more white mold there than you did prior to planting soybeans.
Dr. Henn says potential signs of southern stem rot include wilting at the top of the plant, as well as peanut shells that are empty or only contain a white residue. Part of the reason for the growing success of the Mississippi peanut industry can be attributed to the Mississippi Peanut Growers Association and the National Peanut Board. Don Self says it's been a privilege serving on both boards, which are dedicated to enhancing the production, research, marketing, distribution, and utilization of peanuts. He says a small percentage of growers' earnings are what help fund this mission.
1% off the top comes to the National Peanut Board in the form of funds, and we take it back and educate people and promote peanuts in places where you wouldn't think that it should be. Like in the Culinary Institute of America, I just got back from out there, and people are just now learning, like they do in a lot of places like in China and Japan and Vietnam, how good a peanut is in the center of the plate. Instead of being a side dish, it's used in dishes in the center of the plate. Like in salads and in like a chicken with peanut crust on it.
In addition, Don Self says one of the goals in promoting peanuts is to market and export peanuts on an international level. Furthermore, Mississippi Peanut Growers Association and National Peanut Board members host meetings, conferences, and even visit schools to educate students and teachers about how peanuts are grown, as well as their nutritional value. Don Self says his personal aspirations for the future are to teach his grandchildren about the importance of agriculture and inspire them to carry on the family legacy.
That would be my goal, you know, that they would come up and take an interest in agriculture and, you know, feed the world like we do. If you have a child or a young person that has an interest in agriculture, I would ask that you steer them towards that. You make them stewards of our land. Get them off the video games and let them know that this is where stuff comes from. If they want to go out and dig in the dirt, encourage them to dig in the dirt. I want them to know that bacon comes from a pig. I want them to know that peanuts grow underground. Somebody's got to feed this country. And if we don't teach them how to do it, who does?
As promotion of the Mississippi peanut industry continues, Don Self and his family say they hope to see demand increase for this food product. Self claims that getting into the peanut business did seem risky, but some chances are worth taking when you have the right information and resources. From Hamilton, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
Now you can watch this story again on Mississippi Peanuts on the Farm Week website, our Facebook page, YouTube, or Twitter. The website, farmweek.msucares.com. We'll have links on there where you can contact the Mississippi Peanut Growers Association, and peanut growing advice is available from the Mississippi State University Extension Service. USDA is predicting more peanuts this year. Don may grow less. Cotton and corn prices are kind of inching up. Peanut price not like where you'd like to see it, right. But that still doesn't mean peanuts are bad. It means that they're an alternative that he didn't have before, and he can vary his crop mix. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, a state tree farmer is running for a national award.
Patrice O'Brien is the first woman to be honored outright as the Mississippi Tree Farmer of the Year. She and her Twin Oaks Tree Farm are finalists for the National Tree Farmer of the Year.
Also next week, the Mississippi State University Extension Service is helping troubled rural water systems.
In Southern Gardening, having trouble with summer color? We'll have some suggestions that work.
For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.